Well, welcome to the 700 Club, a game changer. That's what the vicious Delta virus has become. Soaring cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are now motivating mandatory vaccinations and mask mandates indoors, even for the fully vaccinated in some states. So how are Americans responding to the Delta danger? CBN medical reporter Laurie Johnson has the latest.
Monday, the Department of Veterans Affairs became the latest federal agency to require vaccination specifically for its 115,000 healthcare workers. The American Medical Association and 56 other leading medical organizations now calling for mandatory vaccinations for workers at all healthcare settings, including nursing homes nationwide.
Now, that is the healthcare industry where they are very much on the front lines.
California soon requiring vaccination or negative weekly COVID tests for state and healthcare workers. New York City also mandating vaccination or tests for municipal workers, including teachers and healthcare workers, and urging private employers to require shots.
It's quite clear the Delta variant has changed the game. We need to move to stronger measures.
In the meantime, Florida's governor says ordinary people should not be forced or mocked into taking the vaccine.
They have different reasons for why they don't take it, and I think that the more they're hectored by government officials or some of these folks, that is not gonna get them to yes. I can tell you that right now.
Los Angeles, St. Louis, Savannah, and other areas imposing mask mandates indoors, even for the vaccinated. Right now, that goes against CDC guidance, stating only the unvaccinated should wear masks inside, but the agency may soon change that to include the vaccinated as well.
It is scary, especially when the numbers are getting worse, and so I definitely do think wearing masks would be a good thing.
The Delta variant, which makes up 83% of COVID cases in America, is much more contagious than other strains, largely because people infected with it carry up to 1,000 times more virus. That means people who have no immunity are most vulnerable. In fact, health officials say 99% of U.S. hospitalizations and deaths are unvaccinated.
I'm worried that it's going to get much, much worse. Right now, we're generating about 50,000 Americans getting infected. That number could easily double or triple.
Many Americans responding to the Delta danger. Nearly 800,000 got their shot over the weekend, a big jump over previous ones.
Pat, right now, about half of the total U.S. population and nearly 70% of all adults have been vaccinated. And health experts say, in addition to getting a vaccine, a person can also achieve natural immunity if they already had the virus, Pat.
Well, Laurie, how long does immunity from the vaccines last? Do people will need booster shots?
Well, people are already getting booster shots in Israel, their third Pfizer shot, and Pfizer has asked the FDA to recommend people get third shots of their vaccine. And there are two reasons. Number one, the antibodies appear to wane after 7 months. They sort of fade away after about 7 months. And this is particularly concerning for people who got their shot 7 months ago. Remember, those were the people who were most at risk, the frontline health workers and nursing home residents. And another reason booster shots might be necessary is because of the Delta variant. We know, Pat, that a lot of people who are fully vaccinated are getting COVID-19 because of this Delta variant. The good news is right now it does not appear they're needing to be hospitalized and they aren't dying, but they are getting sick. They are having to stay home and miss work and suffer through COVID-19. And these are vaccinated workers because, you know, before these vaccines worked great against the various variants that we saw, but not this Delta one. This Delta one is breaking through.
Well, what's the reasoning behind reinstating mask mandates for people who've already been vaccinated?
Well, again, twofold, two main reasons. And the main one is because these mask mandates, where if you're unvaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask indoors. But if you are vaccinated, you can go without it. This is being done on the honor system. So, for example, I haven't worn a mask inside anywhere since the beginning of May because I was fully vaccinated. So I go into the grocery store anywhere and I'm not wearing a mask, and people just assume that I've been vaccinated. But I'm sure that there are a lot of people who just don't want to wear a mask and they haven't been vaccinated, and it's kind of a free-for-all. And so that's kind of the reason. So if everybody's wearing a mask, we know that nobody is, being dishonest about their vaccination status. And then another reason, Pat, is something that I just mentioned, and that is that even vaccinated people can get sick from COVID-19, and because the viral load is so high, can theoretically transmit it to other people. This has been studied a little bit. It needs to be studied a little bit more. But the risk is that even vaccinated can get the virus and spread it.
Well, Lori, thank you for your insights.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Pelosi Republicans, that's what Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are being called. They're the two Republicans Nancy Pelosi has named to the controversial committee that is investigating the attack on Capitol Hill. The first session is being held today, and Jennifer Wishon is here to tell us more about it. Here's Jennifer.
Pat, the stated goal of the House Select Committee is to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th and ensure it never happens again. But before committee members ask any questions, the process is mired in controversy.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi has appointed 2 Republicans to the 13-member panel. Liz Cheney, once the number 3 Republican, stripped of her leadership role, and Adam Kinzinger, a vocal critic of President Trump.
Aren't they kind of like Pelosi Republicans?
We're about very serious business here. We have important work to do, and I think that's pretty childish.
Pelosi's appointments come after she refused to seat 2 of the 5 members nominated by House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan and Jim Banks, 2 staunch supporters of President Trump. So McCarthy withdrew all his picks.
People said to me, put them on, and then when they act up, you can take them off. I said, why should we waste time on something as predictable?
A move McCarthy says taints the committee.
It shows exactly what I warned back at the beginning of January, that Pelosi would play politics with this.
The panel is chaired by Democrat Congressman Benny Thompson, who, like all members, has horrific memories from that day inside America's hallowed halls.
And then we get to the western side, and somebody said, get on the floor. And they said, take your pen off. Because if they break in, they're trying to kill members of Congress.
Authorities say about 800 people broke through security barriers to enter the Capitol. Some 550 have been charged with crimes. 4 police officers there that day will be the first to testify.
I'm a big believer in sharing with the public what we're doing, how we're doing it. When something bad happens, good news or bad news doesn't get any better by just, sitting on it.
And Monday night, the minority leader tried again to have his nominees put on the committee, but the full House voted that down. The hearings are set to get underway this morning. Pat.
Jennifer, does the committee really expect to learn anything from this new investigation, or is it strictly political?
That's the big question, Pat. I mean, we are expected to see some never-before-seen video that members of Congress took on their phones that day. But law enforcement has been investigating this for 7 months now. As I mentioned, some 550 people are already facing charges. A number of people who are expected to testify, including the 4 police officers testifying today, have testified before, so we already know what they're going to say. However, Pat, it is possible that some unexpected information may come out of this. Remember, we all learned about then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's private email server during a hearing looking at the attack on the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi. So there may be some unexpected information, but in terms of new information about what happened January 6th, that is unlikely.
James Carville said the Democrats should make the Republicans, quote, own the insurrection. Now, is that the strategy you said could backfire on them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, both sides of the aisle are already focused on the midterm elections. And And Nancy Pelosi is really already playing defense because all signs indicate that she's going to lose a number of seats in the House, probably her slim majority. And so she is very well aware of that. And, you know, while there are important questions about why there, you know, what happened with the police breakdown on January 6th, you can bet that Democrats are going to focus a lot on President Trump, on Republicans here. And, you know, at some point, they're going to have to govern because guess what? President Trump and Republicans aren't in control. And while these hearings are going on, gas prices are going up, inflation is going up. And President Biden's agenda that he said he wanted to pass in the first 100 days is mired in Congress. And so at a certain point, I think Democrats are going to have to stop focusing on the past, stop blaming President Trump and Republicans, and they're going to have to govern so they have something to run on in 2022.
Jennifer, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what we've been saying all along. It's time, you know, it's going to be law and order. There's crime all over this country breaking out. You know, what happened way back on that insurrection thing, they can't keep beating that drum. You know, that story is old now. As Jennifer says, we've got terrible inflation. We've got joblessness. We've got all kinds of problems in our economy. And they can't keep focusing on Trump and the insurrection that took place a long time ago. They've got to cover in relation to law and order, in relation to the economy and these other things. And they are going to lose the House. It looks like there are as many as 57 targeted Democrats in the House, and it's only going to take five votes to flip, and you'll get a new speaker and all that rest of it, and they're in a terrible rush to get it all done.